Jason there. Great game. 50 seconds to go. Hurts. Deep shot. Hauled in. Devontae.
Sure. And before the press conferences even start. I mean, we could talk for 45 minutes just about how atrocious the defense is.
Good morning, everybody, and welcome to Trending in the AM right here on DSM Media. We're live, as always, Facebook, Twitter, Twitch, YouTube. You know the drill. Smash that like button, smash that share button, that retweet button on Twitter, and make sure you hit the thumbs up and subscribe button on YouTube. The best and easiest place to interact with the show. You go over to the YouTube page, you put your comments up on the screen, like these examples I have up on the screen now. Easiest way to interact. We've already got people shouting out the guest today. Aaron checking in this morning. What's up, Aaron? Like I said, we're live. DSM Media. We're brought to you by Manscaped, the leader in men's grooming products. Check them out. Manscaped.com. Use promo code DSM at checkout. It gets you free shipping, 20% off, and lets them know Team DSM sent you. Again, I am Phil Stiefel. I'm your host every single morning right here on DSM Media. At Trending in the AM. You can follow me on Twitter at Beard and Knowledge. Today, Jason's at work, so I invited somebody else on. It turns into being one of his best friends. Not his best friend. Aaron, don't worry. You're his best friend, Aaron. Don't worry. But I invited somebody else on that I had no idea. You know him on Twitter as Bucciadelphia. Mr. Joe Bucci. You can follow him on Twitter at Joe Bucci SB52. Joe, welcome to Trending in the AM, and welcome to Team Trending.
Appreciate it, Phil. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah. So we're super excited to have you on. We got a lot to talk about today. But why don't you just tell everybody that's listening the first time, give them like a little minute overview of who you are, why you're a Philadelphia sports fan, and all that kind of stuff.
A minute, man. I don't think that's enough time, Phil. But
you get. Hold on. Clock started. Okay.
Yeah, Joe Bucci, Bucciadelphia. I've been a Philly fan probably since 89, 90. I'm not gonna lie, I was born and grew up in New York State, but I got to Philly. I was probably like 11 or 12 years old. I quickly fell in love with the Philly passion, the Philly sports following. So I've been a diehard Philly sports fan, 4 for 4, right across the board since then. I just, my wife calls me the walking encyclopedia of worthless sports knowledge. So
I think that's a pretty common trend there amongst a lot of wives. They call a lot of us those things on a regular basis.
Yeah, exactly.
All right. Well, we got a jam-packed show today. We got some interesting. This is probably one of the slowest weeks in sports. So I've been trying to get creative with my topics and my thought process this week. Yesterday, Overreaction Monday. Me and Jason had a great conversation. So we got two main topics today. We got a couple topics on the board, but two main topics today. The first topic it came up at random yesterday in the conversation, was that Howie Roseman's entering the last year of his contract with the Eagles. And I want to talk about that because I think it's a really big deal. And I think it's something that really needs to be discussed a lot this week and this offseason before any moves start getting made by the organization. We're going to talk about the Sixers in the process. Because again, yesterday, this topic came up that, in my opinion, the process before Friday night and James Harden making his debut, the process is already a success, in my opinion, and the process is now officially over. We're going to touch on baseball, the lockout. They're starting to talk real quick. Today is National Calendar Day. I've been doing it every day, then I kind of skipped a few days here and there, but today is a really special day on the National Calendar Day. 2 reasons. One, and this one's a shout out to Jason, my co-host in the morning, Jason Voorhees. It's National Supermarket Employee Day. So go to your supermarkets today and be extra nice to your supermarket workers. Those guys in retail, those girls in retail, they work their butts off to get you the food, and the shelves are always empty. It's not their fault. They're short-staffed. It's not their fault. So that is the National Day today. It is also my man Jimmy Buffett's number one day. It's National Margarita Day. So if you're a margarita drinker, I am not, but if you are a margarita drinker, go out and have one and put your fins up for Jimmy Buffett right there. So that's today. That's your National Calendar Days. But let's get into Howie Roseman. Mark already commenting. Roseman isn't leaving. Yeah. So, Joe, we're going to start with Howie Roseman here. So, Joe, we said it yesterday. He's in the last year of his deal. There's a lot of interesting things that come up about this. First off, whether he's a good GM or not, should he be re-signed or not? It is very rare that a GM goes into the last season as a lame duck general manager. Very rare. But the problem with it is that if he isn't extended now, he's under more pressure to win now than, my man George always checks in at the 2022. It's more about 2023 because we're not going to win a Super Bowl in 2022. Well, if he doesn't know he's going to be here in 2023, his only focus is on 2022. And the moves he makes is to, we could debate till we're blue in the face that should he go out and get Aaron Rodgers or Russell Wilson or whatnot? Should he trade all that draft capital? Yeah, he might force himself to overpay if he doesn't know if there's a 2023 for him. So what are your thoughts on the fact that he's a lame duck GM right now, and should Howie Roseman or Jeffrey Lurie have already extended him at this point?
Well, based on his body of work, some of his hits in free agency and some of his failures in the draft, it does seem, that this really could be the end of him. Their connection, they're like two peas in a pod. They've been, connected at the hip for years. And, even though Lurie is the owner, Howie really always has final say.
Mm-hmm.
And even as the GM, he's not the head of the operation, but he's so tightly connected to Jeff. It would be hard for me to see him gone.
Mm-hmm.
But in the same sense, like you said, this is his last year, and why wouldn't they have already given him a new deal?
And that's what's so curious to me is like, well, why hasn't he been extended yet? Like, everybody's saying he had a really good draft and offseason last year, and he did on paper, but it takes years to even know. Like, you can't really say that last year's draft class was a major success until 2-3 years into the future. Like, you really got to see. I know Devontae Smith and Landon Dickerson looked good, but injuries can creep up. There's so many things that can happen. But the fact that Jeffrey Lurie hasn't extended Howie Roseman yet is kind of concerning to me, because, has he really given Howie Roseman an ultimatum on what he needs to accomplish, like physical, steps to keep his job? And let me tell you, if Howie Roseman is cut, traded, gotten rid of, not re-signed, another team will pick him up within 30 seconds of him being available. He is not going to be sitting around doing ESPN interviews for 2-3 years like Louis Riddick.
Right.
He's going to be signed immediately to be a GM if he chooses to be. So I really can't put my finger on why Jeffrey Lurie hasn't extended him yet.
Yeah, that's it's almost seems like all the weight of the world is going to be on him this year if that's the case. And like you said, he might overreach. He might.
And that's the problem. And George is jumping in saying that he's got to sell that 2023 is the year. Well, if George, the question is, if he said that, why hasn't he been given a job or an extension yet? He hasn't. Right. Which means that there is that potential. I know you don't want to hear about Russell Wilson, George, but the Russell Wilson talk becomes a fear of those who don't want him. If he's all in on just 2022, because there is no job security past that, the future of this team can be ruined by him reaching because there is no job security. Sorry.
No worries. I mean, you see this stuff on Twitter and on Facebook and online and ESPN and this rumor and that rumor and this one's talking and that one's talking. Last week Russell Wilson was a 40-1 bet to be an Eagle. This week it's 5-1.
Yep.
So you don't know. Is that real? Is that them just putting stuff out there just to promote him and promote that possibility? It's really it's going to be interesting to see what they do, how he does in the draft, free agency, some of these bad contracts they have on the
question
team.
should be, should Jeffrey Lurie make this extension now before the draft, before free agency? Because that's where this conversation on my end is coming, and it's fearful that if he's not extended now, before the league year officially starts and free agency and all, that's my fear, that he's going to make sole moves just for this upcoming year. He's going to make moves so that we go all in. We're not going to win the Super Bowl, but maybe we do. Maybe the way he works the salary caps and pushes money to the future, he's going to rework a boatload of contracts. He's going to do so many things. He's going to trade multiple first-round picks for Russell Wilson. He's going to go all in on Marcus Williams, Jadeveon Clowney, all the top free agents, and then we're going to be screwed in 2023, 24 when he's the GM of whoever else. And that's my problem. I need that contract extension now, because you can always fire the guy after you give him the contract extension. You just pay off the contract and whatever. By giving him that contract extension now, you're giving him that at least a feeling that he's got job security and he's planning for 2 to 3 years. Right now, he's just planning for 2022.
True. That's scary.
And you brought it up. You brought up the odds. Look, I'm a betting guy. I love the betting aspect of all sports. And I love the off-season betting. Like right now, you can get 5-1 that Russell Wilson will be an Eagle. Literally last week, like you said, it was 40-1 that he'd be an Eagle. These bettors don't just make these changes in odds. If they really thought Russell Wilson had a chance to come to Philly, they wouldn't have left it at 40-1. They made it to 5-1 because there's something that they're hearing, that there's something that they feel, there's something they see in the water that says there's a chance. We got to lower these odds because we don't want to be paying out 1 million people, 40-1 on Russell Wilson. And that's my fear. And I bet you if Jeffrey Lurie gave Howie Roseman and a job extension, even a 3-year job extension today, I bet you that 5-1 would start creeping back up to 7-1, to 10-1, or whatever. Because I really firmly believe that insecurity in his job is going to force him to make knee-jerk reactions. We've seen this in sports before, in a lot of different situations. Teams make knee-jerk reactions. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't.
No, agreed. Totally agreed. Yeah, it could be a make or break year for Howie, and then some of these guys that are on the team with how long are they going to be around? Like Brandon Graham, how long is he going to be here? Like I love Brandon Graham and he's been great, but he makes a decent amount of money. Look at Fletcher Cox. Fletcher Cox is strapping this team financially with his contract.
And that was a Howie Roseman contract.
Yep.
This is interesting. So again, and this is something I want to bring up because I want to tweak this comment from George here. Once again, it's not whether the Eagles want Wilson, it's whether Wilson want to be here. If you have a GM on a lame duck contract, does anyone want to come here? When the future of the team, most high-priced, top-tier free agents, they want to go somewhere that they can win, that they can get paid, but that they can win. No one's going to want to come here to an organization that has nothing past this year set in stone.
Very true. Very true.
Russell Wilson, whether he wants to come here or not, is beside the point. Big picture, it's will he want to come here knowing that it's just this year? Next year, nobody knows what next year will be because the GM, although like you said, it's really Jeffrey Lurie pulling a lot of the strings. There's so much uncertainty in the next year. It's the same thing if you're a lame duck head coach. Is a quarterback going to want to play for somebody that they don't know who's going to be their coach the next year? It's the same thing recruiting in college. If a guy's about to retire or quit as a head coach in college, whatever that recruiting pitch is going to be, it's going to be different the next year. There's so much that goes into the fact that him being a lame duck, GM right now, that scares me this offseason. It really does.
Yeah, it really does. And then you roll in the uncertainty of the starting quarterback. I'm on board with keeping Hurts around and surrounding him with the best players and system possible. But that question mark rolled in with the general manager. That's a lot, and it's a lot for an outside player, free agency, whatnot, to want to come here not knowing if the structure is this what it's going to be, or are they going to make big changes? So that's that. Having those question marks and having that instability would deter, a big name player from coming here.
Yeah, I mean, do you agree or do you disagree that this decision needs to be made before the draft or free agency starts? I
think it definitely needs to be done before all of that. So he doesn't feel like Lurie's breathing down his neck or looking over his shoulder, or almost like a nonverbal ultimatum, like if you don't get this right, then you're gone. And then what would he do to this team? Like like you said, he might go all in, and then we're left. The next person's left with trying to bring it all back in and get everything
on going all in. So say going all in for Russell Wilson. Again, I know, George, you hate the Russell Wilson talk. But right before we went on the air, I was paging through Twitter, going through things, and I know I bash PFF all the time. They're very skewed with their rankings and their posts and their lists and stuff like that. Very skewed. But they did propose a trade of Aaron Rodgers going to Denver. And in my opinion, Aaron Rodgers, draft capital wise, would cost much more, in my opinion, than what Russell Wilson will get. Even though he's older, I think he's a tier above Russell Wilson. And what you would have to trade. So they proposed that Denver would have to trade their first round pick this year, which I don't remember exactly where it is. It's in the first half of the draft. Their second round pick this year, and their first round pick next year, and a third round. So 2 firsts, one this year, one next year, a second this year, and a third next year. And that's it to get Aaron Rodgers. So all these people saying that Russell Wilson's going to cost you 3 first round picks and more, if all it's going to take is 2 first round picks to get Aaron Rodgers, that might be all it takes, and you might not have to include the second and the third round pick. So, you might conceivably be able to get Russell Wilson for one of your 3 firsts this year and next year's first. But that's a move that, if that's available, that Howie might rush to make this year if he's going all in. And I'm not saying it's the right move. I know I joke on Mondays for Overreaction Monday. I'm all in on Russell Wilson, But I know, realistically speaking, it's not the best move for the big picture of this team. But that's something I can see Howie doing.
Yeah. There's he's not like San Francisco, where that team is quarterback away. Everything else really seems like it's in place for that team to, get to the Super Bowl, win a Super Bowl if they have the right guy at quarterback.
Yeah. No, I mean, I'm just going to disagree with George on this one. He's saying he thinks it's a non-story. I think it is. I know you say that, the long-term track record of this team says they don't make knee-jerk reactions, but I don't know. I kind of get the sense sometimes from Jeffrey Lurie in the last year or so that he's kind of getting a little antsy, a little almost like he's reading the Twitterverse a little bit too much in the social media posts, and he sees the opinions. So I kind of feel like he might be putting a little bit more of an ultimatum on Howie Roseman to get things right, even if it's for the future, than in the past. And the problem is that even last year's draft, no matter how great we grade last year's draft,
right,
we don't really know if it's a great draft or not. Devontae Smith and Landon Dickerson had injury histories and concerns coming into this season. They played, relatively healthy this year. But, that doesn't mean they can't get hurt next year and their careers get derailed because of it. So we can't truly grade this past draft until, down the line. Milton Williams shows some potential. Zach McPherson, when we needed extra cornerbacks, he couldn't get on the field. They had to pick up like 7 other cornerbacks in free agency and trades later in the year.
True.
Just to fill out so there's still so many concerns on this team, even though we had 2 really good draft picks at the top of the draft class. So we still don't know. So I don't know. I think there's a little bit of an ultimatum on Jeffrey Lurie's head right now, or on Howie Roseman's head from Jeffrey Lurie, and it concerns me. It really concerns me.
It does, especially when you talk about the, Jalen Hurts, from what the things that I've read, and, you don't know if it's true or if it's not, but because neither one of them are going to take blame for when things go south, or if they have a bad season, they'll deflect it. But I know one of them likes Hurts, and I know one of them doesn't like Hurts from what I've heard. So that, that's a power struggle between the two of them, and maybe that's why Howie doesn't have a deal right now.
Maybe there's a power struggle. But if this comment is true, and I agree with this 100%, this comment on the screen, because you look at what the Giants and the Washington Commanders. I got it right. I didn't say anything else. I said the Washington. I'm gonna pat
Good job.
I got that right.
Yeah,
the Giants, the Washington Commanders, the Jets, all these teams that keep rotating through GMs. Well, if the Eagles GM is so good and so much better than some of these other teams, then why hasn't he been extended? Why hasn't he been given that GM, that job security yet? And that's, if I agree that he's going to get a job immediately if he's not with the Eagles. I agree. We're better off keeping him than going through the next 7 years with 5 different GMs. I don't need another Gettleman situation in Philly, you know.
Right.
But if it's so sure, then why isn't he being given that long-term security? You know, and again, yeah, I agree with this one too. But so if he's so good, why there's got to be something. I'm trying to find that little tea leaf that's buried in there, and I just can't figure it out.
No, it's hard because they're so, they talk, but they say a whole lot of nothing. When Howie does talk or Jeff does talk, you leave those press conferences and it's like, all right, you never know when they're telling the truth. So
Yeah.
it's going to be interesting to see free agency, the draft. And they hit on Dickerson, they hit on Smith, but what are the chances on them hitting on a receiver in this draft? I'd be scared to death to see them try to draft another top receiver.
So here's how well, I mean, it might take 5 more minutes or 10 more minutes to go through this part of it, but this Howie Roseman part. Well, the final question is, when or what does he need to do to get that extension? Will come before the draft or free agency. Does he have to have a certain kind of result in the draft, even though you don't know if the draft is good or not? Does he need to do a certain thing to get that extension? Do they wait till the season starts to give him that extension? Do they wait till 5 weeks into the season to give him that extension? Or does this whole year play out? Like, what if you're Jeffrey Lurie, if you're thinking like Jeffrey Lurie, when are you going to sit down with Howie Roseman and be like, all right, here we go. Here's 3 more years or whatever. You know, what are you thinking that his thought process is?
Just knowing that their connection and the years that they spent together, and the highs and the lows. I mean, I myself would, see how he did in the draft, and then go from there. But knowing how Lurie is, he'll probably wait until after the season. It's you looking in the draft room last year when they made their picks, and I think they got to the Milton Williams pick.
Mm-hmm.
Lurie,
There's a very strong disagreement on that.
Rose is walking around giving everybody a pound, and he goes up to the one guy, and the guy kind of just blew him off. Like, wait, why did you take him?
Exactly.
But I think just because of the time and his tenure here, I think that it'll be after the season, whether we like it or not.
Yeah, I mean, it's possible. Look, I know some people are commenting here and all. It's just, I just don't know if, I just don't know. I just can't wrap it around my head that, you're going to take that risk of, him overselling the farm for 2022. George is all about, maybe if he can make a trade and push some of those draft picks into 2023, like George always says, maybe that secures him and gets that extension right away because he's moving them all for 2023. And you're like, yo, Jeffrey, I'm doing this for the future or whatever. I just don't know. I want Russell Wilson. I love Russell Wilson, blah, blah, blah. But I don't want to overpay for Russell Wilson.
Right.
And that is my fear, that he's going to think that overpaying for Russell Wilson is going to get him a chance at a deep playoff run. And it's not, because there's still so many holes. And he's going to sacrifice 2 of those 3 first-round picks, which I don't want to do. And it just scares me.
Right.
Yeah, Donahue. I was going to say Donahue, but it's such a common Delco name that I didn't want to just sound stupid by just saying Donahue there. Yeah, I don't know. We'll see. I think it's an interesting thing. Some people don't agree that it's an interesting conversation, but I think it's an interesting topic that needs to be monitored. As when's the league year start? Like, it's like 2 or 3 weeks when the league year starts. I think it's something to monitor, because you just don't want to. Mark said somewhere maybe Howie Roseman wants to go out into the market. Things to consider. Maybe he wants to be a free agent GM. Maybe he wants to get out of the image of being Jeffrey Lurie's lackey, being a guy that does things only because of what you. Maybe there is something to that, Mark. I don't know. I don't know. Maybe Mark or Jeffrey and Howie's relationship kind of disservices that comment. I don't know. They're too close. Maybe that's not the case. But maybe it is. Maybe there's something to it. Yeah, that was a great pick. It was. The Milton Williams pick did turn out to be a great pick. Absolutely. Well, it turned out to be a good pick. We won't know if it's a great pick until we see him on the field playing 60% of the snaps, and if he could really develop into that next level. He showed signs as a rookie that it was a good pick. And I would have to look at the draft board to see who was on the board at that time. But yeah, that seems like it'll be a good pick. Long term down the line.
Agreed. Yes.
All right. So real quick, since I got you here, before we get into the Sixers topic, where are you with these three? We talk about it on the show. It's your first time on the show. Where are you with what the Eagles should do with those 3 first-round picks?
Oh man. I'm pro defense first. There are, some glaring holes that this defense needs for sure. Did the Eagles take a linebacker in the first round? It's been what, 20, 30 years since they've done.
Years, yeah.
It's I'm pro defense. The whole receiver thing. I know they need another receiver, but I would go the free agency route at receiver. But I have no problem with them going all defense in the first round. And then but then you never know what's going to happen with Kelsey. If Kelsey decides to retire, does that change the mindset? Linderbaum from Iowa is a guy out there that's probably one of the best out there. So I guess you got to see what the board looks like. But I'm going. If I had to pick, I'm like linebacker, safety, D end.
That's what we would all want to pick. It's just something that I've been preaching on the show that I don't see Howie doing. I see them going with defensive end with the first pick. If the Linderbaum guy isn't there, people are convincing me slowly to do that. I'm still not 100% sold that you draft your future center that early in a draft. That high. I know people are saying he could go in the top 10. I don't think investing in a center that high in a draft that's the right move. But yeah, I see edge. I see guard or tackle. I see wide receiver. I see, maybe 2 defensive ends even with those if you select those 3 first-round picks. But I keep preaching. We keep talking about Howie. I keep preaching that you got to look at what he does. And I know sometimes he does the unexpected, but it's been 40 years since we drafted a linebacker in the first round. A cornerback, I think Lito Shepard, was he the last cornerback in the first round? I'm not sure. He was the last successful cornerback in the first round, at least. Safety. Who was the last safety taken in the first round? A long time.
Michael Lewis, I think, was a second rounder.
Yeah, Michael Lewis is a second round.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I don't know. So, and Howie Roseman's been the GM here, but he worked under Joe Banner, and Joe Banner was here for a long time. So it's been kind of like the same philosophy running through the front office since the day Jeffrey Lurie took over. So it's kind of like you don't need to just look at Howie Roseman's track record, just the organization's track record over the last whatever. And I ran a couple mock drafts. I did one on Friday. We're going to do another one later this week. Late first round, early second round, there's going to be a couple quarterbacks that I'm sure Howie Roseman's going to be tempted on. If we're not trading for Russell Wilson and the organization's split on Jalen Hurts, don't be surprised if they move back up into the late first round or use that 51st pick on a quarterback. It's a distinct possibility that I'm scared of. But if he wants job security, draft your future quarterback, then you got 2 more years to really help groom the team around him. Howie Roseman, sometimes I kind of think that he makes moves to secure his job. He purposely makes moves like picking a young head coach. So the coach needs 2 years or 3 years. So I'm going to be here for 2 to 3 years. I'm going to pick a developmental quarterback. Gives me 2 to 3 more years to see if I got the job. So he keeps doing things to string Jeffrey Lurie along. I don't know.
I don't know. It's going to be a wild offseason. I'll say that.
Well, I'm saying that. I'm saying if he does with a rookie quarterback, that extends his career or his years here even more.
I don't know. He won 1 Super Bowl. They won 1 Super Bowl with him here. But
it's more than a lot of other teams.
It is. But overall, I think his drafting history, some of his misses have been like epically bad.
Yeah, that's why. I know, George. I got you, buddy. That's why. I think he's overlooked as a drafter because his drafting isn't that bad overall. It's that his 2 or 3 misses are so bad it overshadows the good that he has actually done.
Definitely.
All right, let's wrap that up. Let's move on. Sorry, George. It's back to basketball talk here. So Friday, Mr. James Harden makes his debut with the Sixers. Okay, and again, Overreaction Monday yesterday. It's great. It's crazy how one day show kind of wrote some of the topics for Tuesday's show, and I got to thinking, what was the process? Everybody thinks the process was stripping it down and building it up to win a title. But the process wasn't about stripping it down and winning a title. The process was about stripping it down, acquiring assets to get a superstar, to acquire multiple superstars. And here we are about Friday is, 3 days away. We're about to roll out James Harden and Joel Embiid on the court. James Harden was just voted one of the 75 greatest players of all time. It's not easy to be rated one of the top 75 players of all time. That's a very elusive, very, very small group of people with all the thousands of guys that have played in the NBA to be voted one of the top 75 of all time. To me, the process is complete, and the process was a success. Whether we win a title, in my opinion, is irrelevant to the process.
I can agree with that. That was, like you said, that was always the goal, to acquire all these assets and draft picks and this and that to bring in somebody of this caliber is pretty remarkable, considering how bad this team was, before the Embiids and the Fibles and some of these other guys that were, you're winning 10 games a year, you're winning 8 games a year, 15 games a year, and there's more media in the stands than there are fans. Mm-hmm. So I think waiting for Embiid to get healthy and then actually getting him on the court and what he's done in his tenure here is incredible.
Yeah.
And
the
then
process was never about. Do you agree? The process was never about putting out Joel Embiid, Ben Simmons, and Markelle Fultz. That was people because those 3 picks didn't all work out together on the court. People say that it was a failure. No. The process was never about having those 3 guys on the court together. The process was about getting James Harden to Philly.
Agreed.
It was about getting Jimmy Butler to Philly. That didn't work out, but
right.
They still did enough. The process was so good. You were able to bring Jimmy Butler to Philly, not keep him, and still be able to go out and get James Harden.
Yeah, it's pretty incredible to put that in a nutshell like that. And just knowing that the sky's the limit with this team. I mean, they're a win now team. They really should get to the East Finals, and they do have a legitimate shot of winning it all this year.
Absolutely agree with you. There's no doubt in my mind they have a legitimate shot. We saw that in the last game before the All-Star break about how they took it without James Harden right to the Bucks. This team. I mean, there's still let's not kid ourselves. There's still holes on this team, and the buyout market's trimming down. People are getting signed off the buyout market. We still don't have a legitimate backup center. I know we can play small ball with some of our guys, but we still need a legitimate backup center. We still need Goran Dragic going to the Nets. It was a guy. He could have been that backup guard for Maxey, for Harden. You still need, somebody that can go and get a bucket off the bench. But as it stands right now, we are still a legitimate contender. It's, I'd rather be a legitimate favorite, versus a contender though. And that's where it's still got some work to do. But I don't need to call it the process anymore. I don't need to call I'm ready to retire the term the process, because the process as of Friday, unless some crazy Andrew Bynum thing happens and James Harden never plays for the Sixers, not going with it. I'm just throwing that out there, because the Andrew Bynum conversation yesterday is what brought up this whole thought process and all. Unless some random Andrew Bynum process happens and he never plays for the Sixers, the process was a success, which is shout out to Andrew Bynum, because the process never happens. This success that we have right now and potentially have never happens if Andrew Bynum is not one of the worst trades that ever goes down in Philly history. But that's actually one of the best trades, because that trade set the future for the Sixers franchise going forward.
Agreed. Thank you, Andrew.
Yeah, thank you, Andrew. If it wasn't for Andrew Bynum, Sam Hinkie would never have died for our sins. Never would have.
Oh, man, that's good stuff.
Yeah. Should the Sixers build a statue for Sam Hinkie if this team wins a title?
Oh, you have to.
You got to hang a banner up in the rafters that says Sam,
Okay.
and you can put, instead of his number, you could put down all the draft picks he acquired in trades as his number. 47 first-round picks, 85 second-round picks, and put that under his name in the rafters. I think that's a fair way to honor the man that got us to this point.
Do it.
So let's talk Sixers here. The process is over now. We agree on that. You say they can make a contending run here. I've talked about there's 24 games left. Coming up in a few days, we got 3 games right out of the break. But then after that, we got that really tough stretch. You got Cleveland, you got Brooklyn, you got the Heat, and I forget who the other team is. I didn't bring up the Sixers schedule before the show. But you got 4 really tough games against really title contending type teams. Outside of that 4-game stretch, I see a very easy schedule. So realistically speaking, how far can the Sixers go in the regular season? How many more wins can they get? Like, what's their ceiling at this point? Being still in that 3rd, 4th seat, range right now. Can they get up to the 1 seat? Can they get up to the 2 seat? Like, what's the ceiling of this team as it's currently constructed?
Just knowing their seeding and how close they are without the addition of Harden, I mean, I think they can win the East without an issue. It could come down to the very end of the season, but just the way they're constructed now and the addition of an all-star caliber player that's going to, take their game to even a higher level. I think they can win. I think they can have a real legit shot of getting the number 1 seed.
Yeah, so it's Cleveland, Miami, Chicago, Brooklyn. It was Chicago I forgot about. 4 really tough games there from March 4th through March 10th right there. 4 games in 6 days. It's just complete, just total tough stretch there. Look, I don't want to say that we definitely can win the East, get the first seat in the East. I still think we can make the finals, so that's winning the Eastern Conference. But in the playoffs, I'm still concerned about about Milwaukee. From Thursday night, watching that game before the All-Star break and the way it played out, especially if we don't add real talent during this buyout market, whoever it may be. And I hear all different names still being floated around. But if we don't really address some of these glaring holes, I still think that the defending champion, the Bucks, are our toughest test in the East at this point. And I know we were able to put George Niang to cover a big portion of the game, Giannis. But in the 7-game series, if George Niang is the guy that's got to cover Giannis, we're in for some trouble. I still fear them the most out of any team in the East.
No, that's a reasonable fear. I mean, they did win. They just won it last year, so they're battle tested. That series against New Jersey came down to, last second shot by Durant. If his foot is behind the line, we're talking about the Nets in the finals and not Milwaukee. So I totally agree with that. They have to get a legitimate backup. The rumor I heard, and I don't know if there's any weight to it, is Derek Favors. I think he's going to get bought out by Utah, which would be a really good addition. He's got decent size. He could score the ball, but when it comes to backup guard, I don't know if Morey's on board with that. I've heard he only wants to get one buyout player, and if you bring in a guy like Favors, there's your one guy. If you want to bring in a guard, who's the odd guy out?
Yeah, you're gonna have to cut somebody, and I know they don't want to. I mean, I still think. I like Shake. Shake's a nice guy, but I think. Shake. I'm not saying you cut Shake when you bring in another guy, but I'm saying Shake's not good enough to be that backup guard because he currently is. When Maxi's not out there, it's Shake Milton, and I know now you got Harden, so your rotations can change, but I don't have confidence in Doc and his rotations to not still bench Maxi and Harden at the same time, which means Shake your main guard out there. I still think that's a problem. I really do. The only positive is now with Harden, we won't have to see Furkan be that backup guard anymore.
Right.
You won't have to worry about Furkan being a ball handler anymore. So, Friday, game's almost here. What are you expecting to see out of James Harden in his first game suiting up in a Sixers uniform?
I think, I mean, from what the clips I've seen of him, in the gym, he looks like he's relatively in shape. He looks like he's, your consummate teammate, but we don't know what that's going to translate to the court. How is he going to mesh with the other starting lineup? And is Doc going to overthink this? Is it, it's going to be game one. There's going to be some hiccups. There's going to be some bumps in the road. But, when you have a guy of Harden's caliber who can create his own shot, you don't necessarily have to know the offense right off of the bat. I mean, he can shoot from anywhere on the court. He can make shots with his eyes closed. So I think that's going to be a benefit to him and a benefit to the team. So I can see him scoring 25 points on Friday with
that's something I was kind of thinking about is, integrating a new star into a team. If you go back to the history of the NBA the last 10 or 12 years, when you see a lot of big name stars get traded at the trade deadline, it's very rare that you see it integrated so quickly and successfully. A lot of these guys, they get traded and then they don't win a title or make a title run until the next year with their new team. It's so hard, the lack of practice time in the NBA and stuff like that. But a guy like James Harden, because, I mean, I've said it on the show before and everybody's read it, he doesn't want to be the go-to guy. He wants Joel Embiid so the offense is still centered around Joel Embiid. You're just upgrading one of the guard positions around him. So it's not like we're completely flipping it, taking Joel out of the equation and making James Harden the focal point. You're making James Harden just a complementary piece to Joel Embiid, just upgrading that. So you basically took Seth Curry out and you added James Harden. So that's basically what you're doing. So I think it can be integrated a lot quicker because he doesn't want to be or need to be the focal point. Now, maybe last second shot at the end of a game, you might be giving the ball to him instead of Joel, or you might have more play running options with a better player out there with Joel. But the focal point of the offense will be the same. And I think that's kind of why I'm confident going into this stretch run, is it's not as hard to integrate him into the lineup as it is for other stars.
Agreed. And some of these experts and sports people, or just people you talk to at the water cooler at work, oh, he's a ball hog, he's all about him, this and that. Well, look at his stat line. He's averaging almost a triple double every game. Yeah, some of his point totals have gone down, but that's going to happen when you play with a guy like Kyrie and a guy like Durant. I mean, there's just not enough ball to go around.
And that situation in Brooklyn was just, I mean he's played in a year, from last year when he got traded till this year when he got traded, he only played in 16 games with his entire, with Durant and Kyrie. I mean, that's insane to think that they only played 16 games together. So there was never any time for them to really develop any chemistry or figured it out. But because they were never together.
Right.
And Kyrie not playing and all this and that, his role, James Harden, changed every single night.
Sure.
Here in Philly, his role is going to be the same every single night. It's going to be the number two. He's going to be you would never think a guy ranked in the top 75 players of all time. He is literally the Robin to Joel Embiid's Batman.
Right.
And you have a top 75 player in the history of the sport as a Robin. And I think that's why it'll integrate so well.
Definitely.
Yeah, absolutely. So Brooklyn, we touched on them. We said we fear Milwaukee. Do we fear Brooklyn at all? As Kevin Durant gets healthy, he's about to come back. Ben Simmons, say what you will about Ben Simmons or not, still an elite defensive player in the league. Kyrie Irving, it's trending. I'm not. There's no rumors. I haven't read anything, but I'm just reading between the lines. It's trending that Brooklyn at some point, New York at some point, is going to lift their vaccine mandate, just like everybody else is doing, which means then Kyrie can play every game. If Kyrie's playing every game, Durant gets back healthy, Ben Simmons starts playing even at an okay level, do you fear or worry about Brooklyn come playoff time at all? There are too many pieces of the puzzle there that haven't been fit together.
Right. And it's, how it's really going to come down to how do they play together as a team versus how do we play together as a team. I think knowing Ben's weaknesses and his tendencies, I think that we can definitely use that to our advantage. They did a stat of, Ben Simmons would probably cover James Harden. And Stephen A. Smith said the other day or a few weeks ago, he's the only guy on the Nets that can lock down James Harden. Well, if you look at his stats, that's not the case. They've played against each other, I think, 7 games, and Harden's relatively close to a triple-double, and he's averaging like 32 points a game. So I think that, us knowing how Ben is and how he, how is he going to play when he comes back here? Like, is he going to be able to flip a switch and be able going to be able to turn off all the noise and be able to handle this environment? I don't see that happening.
Okay, interesting. I'm just curious because I'm still trying to figure out in my mind what Brooklyn is, and I'm just trying to get everybody's opinion on that because I'm really not sure at this point. I fear them. I mean, any team that's got Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving, you got to fear them.
Absolutely.
But it's a combo of even those two, Kyrie and Kevin Durant. How many times have they even played together? Based off a percentage of games that they could have played together, it's a very small number. So there's still such an unknown there that I am concerned. You know what I mean? So, but we'll see how that goes. All right, real quick, last topic of the show today, baseball. I don't have a Phillies hat in here. I was going to switch to a Phillies hat, but I don't know where it is. So baseball, they did postpone the start of training camp and all, and said no games will happen before whatever time now. They're setting the deadline as the 28th, which is Monday, I believe. If a deal is not made by Monday, then that's going to be the deadline to you're going to start missing regular season games, and you're going to start cutting into the 162. They've actually met. They spent some quality time, not 15 minutes, 3 to 4 hours. They met yesterday. They met for an hour or so. They met separately. They got back to the table. They met again. The Players Association was meeting last night and early this morning, and they supposedly are they're going to bring a proposal to the table today. They moved the meetings to Florida. I've also heard rumors that some of the owners are meeting separately to kind of then have more things to go to the people that are negotiating in their place, more information for them. It looks like we're finally starting to trend in the right direction. We're still major points like the arbitration pool and the draft lottery. There's things that are really far apart still, but they're getting closer. And the fact that they're meeting for more than 15 minutes at a time tells me both sides realize what's at stake here. Do we get this deal done by Monday?
I think we do. I think they've, they had all this time before now to get things hammered out, or at least talk, have some sort of negotiation. And I think that the fact that they met for so long yesterday, I think the reality of the whole situation is setting in, and how this product could be damaged and the season could be damaged, and fandom and money and ticket sales and memorabilia. Like, nobody's going to want to buy tickets or buy any of that stuff if they know that there might not be a season, or the season's going to be delayed. It's gonna sour a lot of people on the sport for this year and years to come. So I think they get it done by Monday. I think they realize how serious it's getting, and the fallout from this could be catastrophic.
What really is bothering me is it seems like, all right, so this arbitration pool, let's use that for an example. The players were at like, I forget the exact number, $120 million. The owners were at like $5 million. The owners come up to $6 million and $7 million. The players keep coming down $5, $10 million. The owners keep going up 1 and 2. The owners are still so in control of the situation. I feel bad for the players to an extent because the owners are going to lose money, but they can afford to lose the money. And the players, the top tier players that can afford to lose money, the Max Scherzers, the Clayton Kershaws, the Bryce Harpers, they can afford to lose some paychecks. The bottom tier guys cannot.
No, right.
And the problem is none of the bottom tier guys are part of the negotiation process. Max Scherzer is, I think, one of the leaders of the Players Association. These are the guys that are leading the negotiations. And I kind of hope they understand that the younger guys are really depending on this deal getting done. But it's a shame that, that the players have to give so much just to get a little bit from the owners. And it really, even if they get this deal done, even if baseball starts game 1 on time this year, I'm still in my mind a little tiffed at this happening. And
Sure.
it still may affect how I spend my money on baseball this offseason, how much I spend, how many games I go to, what I buy or don't buy. I'll still watch the games. I'll still talk about the games on these shows, but I'm still a little ticked off at the ownership and how they're handling this entire situation.
Agreed. Yeah, it's you know they the ball is in their court all the time, and the fact of the matter that they're using that, it seems like they're using that against everyone. It's like them versus everyone, and they're like, look, we control this, and you everything goes as we say it goes.
Mhm.
It's frustrating as a fan. It's irritating. It makes you question, am I going to buy that hat? Am I going to buy that jersey? Am I going to buy, a 10-game package, a 5-game package, season tickets? It's definitely frustrating, and it would definitely factor in to, how I see the season, and going to games and buying.
And the other thing that's not being talked about, I mean, if they say they sign a deal today, just I mean, it's not going to happen today. But just say they get to the table today and they're like, you know what, let's hammer this out. Let's get it done. Literally everybody's got to report tomorrow at training camp. There's still dozens and dozens of free agency. The free agent aspect of this is going to be a whirlwind spin and how quickly things happen. And it's going to put teams at a disadvantage. It's going to put the big market teams at an advantage. There's going to be a lot of guys that don't get the deals they could have gotten or should get because it's just going to be so rapid. They just want to get into camp. They're just going to sign deals. There's so many domino effects that are coming from this that so many people are going to be affected. And yeah, I mean, I'm definitely not spending hard-earned money with to give to these owners that it's just completely unfair for the players. And it's kind of frustrating. I said it before, and I said it was never going to miss a single second. This deal was going to be done by Valentine's Day, and it's just let me down completely at this point.
Definitely.
And you're older like me. You remember '94. I was let down then, and it took me a while to get back into the sport, like passionate wise. And
Yeah.
I feel it happen again, and I'm a grown up now. So a home run chase isn't going to get me back in the sport like it did in the late '90s. There, I don't know as a grown adult that's using my money, not mom and dad's money. I don't know what it's going to take to bring that passion back. It's going to take the Phillies making a deep run. That's what it really is.
Right. Winning cures all.
Winning does cure all. But yeah, I mean, it's at the point where it has to happen. But it's gonna. I really firmly believe it's gonna come down to the players giving up as much as they have to get the deal done.
Yeah, unfortunately.
Yeah.
But the longer it goes, and if it drags out and there's games missed, it's going to make it worse and worse for us, in the long run. So,
We're going to learn a lot today. So the players are going to meet today and bring another proposal to the table. We're going to learn a lot today. If today's meeting goes 15 minutes, then you can pretty much cancel the start of the season. But even if they don't get a deal done today, if they stay at the table for 2-3 hours today, 4 hours today,
right.
then that shows that they're at least willing to make some progress. And I think that'll be a good sign that, like you said, you think it gets done by Monday. Today, I think is going to be, because they spent so much time yesterday. They made so many counter proposals. They're making an official proposal today, the players. Today's meeting is, I think, one of the key moments on whether it happens or not happens. No.
Sorry about that.
No, you're good.
It is. I mean, they're running out of time. They've only got a few days left, so they really have to. They got to put it all on the table and get it hammered out. Because time is of the essence. Like you said, there's a lot of topics that they need to address and get lined up. Because it's they're, like you said, the owners aren't going to really lose any money in some of the top tier players. are going to be fine. But the guys that are lower on the totem pole, the guys that are looking for a deal, they're free agents. They don't have a team yet. It's going to be awful for them. And I love baseball. I love going to the games and buying memorabilia for all my favorite teams. But it's definitely going to leave right now it leaves a bad taste in my mouth. And the longer it goes, the longer it gets drawn out. It's only going to make it worse.
Yeah, absolutely. I think we're going to wrap the show up there today. That was a good conversation today here on Trending in the AM right here on DSM Media Live every Monday through Friday, 8:30 a.m. Facebook, Twitter, Twitch, YouTube. Today, again, I was joined by my man, Joe Bucci. Follow him on Twitter at Joe Bucci SB52. You know him as Bucci. You could just Google search Buchadelphia and his name will come up. It was a great job. You follow me on Twitter at Bearded Knowledge. As always, you know that. Make sure a lot of people are tuning in on YouTube today. Make sure you hit that subscribe button, hit that follow button on Facebook and on Twitter, and hit the thumbs up on YouTube too. That helps the algorithms. And turn the notifications on. You don't want to miss a minute. You might forget about the morning show. You have those notifications turned on. The phone's just going to pop right up and say, yo, Trending the AM's live. And it'll remind you to get on. We're brought to you, as always, by Manscaped, the leader in men's grooming products. Goat and below the waist maintenance. Check them out, manscaped.com. Use promo code DSM at checkout. Get you 20% off free shipping and let them know Team DSM sent you. We'll be back live tomorrow. What'll be on the conversation tomorrow? I have no idea. We'll figure this out as we go. The slowest sports week continues right here in Philadelphia as Trending in the AM rolls on. Joe, thank you very much for joining me today.
Appreciate it, Phil. I really do appreciate it. Thanks a lot. Thanks, everybody.
Hey, Joe, we end every show with one simple phrase. Let's go Birds.
Go Birds.